So we're Vida, and I hope that many of you know who we are already. As I said, I see a few familiar faces, friends and family, but certainly a few clients, both existing clients as well as clients that we've worked with in the past. And I so appreciate your support and engagement with what I think is a pretty compelling topic. And we'll talk about that as we move along. Vida is a coaching organization. We offer career, leadership, life, and health coaching with a number of coaches from all over the country. And we believe from a leadership perspective that everyone has the potential to be a leader, and everyone has the opportunity to become a better and better leader. And so we try to meet all of you, existing and aspiring leaders, exactly where you are, to give you the confidence to move forward with your objectives and to reach your goals. We consider ourselves to be partners along this journey with you. There are a number of really great leadership coaches, and all of you have a link, obviously, to our website. So as we go along, imagine working with any of those people who you think might be a complement to yourself. Here's what I look like in real life. So have been working with Vida for just about 3 years. I come to coaching from a professional career, first as an attorney and then as a marketing professional in a whole bunch of different industries. And so for those of you who find yourselves now exploring what kinds of options are out there for you, if you choose to make a career move, that's viable territory, both for leadership coaching and career coaching. I encourage all of you to keep your minds open as we move through this presentation. I suggest that you take the time to take notes. Enter into the chat. And although Justice said, please keep your microphone off, I'm more than happy to entertain real questions real time. So don't hesitate to raise your hand and or just chime in. I'd really appreciate it. I think the best way to engage in these webinars and get the most out of them is to remark on two things personally. One is what surprises you the most that you're learning, i.e. what resonates with you most. And what are the questions that come up as you try to imagine how you're going to apply some of this new thinking and new topics to your own real life experience, both in the workplace and perhaps without. Today, we're going to talk about why this topic resonates, and feel free to start typing in the chat right now. Why did this topic resonate for you? Why did you take the time to put this webinar on your calendar? A couple real life examples and stories, and I hope again you'll share. I will bring some examples to the table, and we'll even bounce to a funny popular culture example. Reassuring ourselves that not having all the answers all the time is actually okay, and exploring at work how to manage those awkward feelings, the habits that we have of being the person who wants to have the right answers, or at least an answer all the time. And then, of course, building our game plan. Am I missing anything here that any of you were hoping might come up today in this agenda? And Justice, I'm counting on you to monitor the chat. Thanks.
Yep, I've got you.
Great. So why this topic resonates? Pause for a second and explore how used to it are you to supposing, especially at work, that you're the kind of person who has all the answers. How much is having all the answers part of your brand identity or your personal identity? Most of us do well in school and along the path, our journey to our career, by believing that if we have all the answers all the time, people will nod their heads with approval and think we've really got our act together. Can everybody relate to that? But in reality, with every passing day, it's a pretty crazy world out there with facts jumping onto our computer screens and taking place in the environments around us at an increasingly fast speed. And we may not be ready for every single scenario. Question for you to consider either here as part of our webinar today, or as you follow up after giving some thought to what we talk about today. What are the preconceived notions in your workplace that make it seem like being right all the time and having the answers available right away is what is expected? What do you notice around you that makes that seem like the way things need to be? Anybody? So what does it feel like to be caught off guard? No matter how prepared you are, no matter how much you want to show up and show that you're quote unquote in control, we all get caught off guard. We all have a question that comes our way that we may not have an answer to. Some of the common emotions that come up: panic. Oh my God, I never even thought to look at that. Who would have thought that somebody would ask that question? I'm angry with someone else because they never gave me the answer to the question to help me prepare. We get embarrassed. We stumble over our words. We point fingers. We look for excuses. Sometimes we even have a loss for words. Like we literally just feel like a flashlight is shining on us and we don't know what to say. Some people tell us they overtalk and they make things up. And we're going to see a funny example of that in a minute. Blaming, and a big one, over-promising. So, well, I don't have the answer right now, but tomorrow I will give you a detailed report on all of that, when you're not 100% sure you can even make that happen. What else? Anybody want to chime in with an example, either in the chat or feel free to take yourself off mute, about what it feels like to you when you were caught off guard and don't have an answer to a question available? Okay.
I can add one. It's probably easier to talk than type. So
okay, thanks.
I have certainly had a moment with it's less anxious when I'm with the team or with peers, but I've noticed that I've certainly been embarrassed or panicked when I was at a board meeting and I didn't have the answers, because it felt like the point of me being there was to be an expert at what I do. And the fact that they're also supposed to be experts at finding the things that I miss. And so, it certainly caught me off guard, and finding a way not to stumble over your words and almost recover from it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what you're talking about. And so that was certainly one where you're like, okay, you just have to like get back. Okay, get back on focus and keep going. Like you can't derail.
Thanks so much. And I think you raised two really good points. One is, who's in the room with you? When are you most likely to feel this sense of panic or embarrassment, over talking or under talking? And who's the audience? So being prepared going into a conversation or a meeting, cognizant of who's going to be in that room and who might take you off track, and then deciding in advance, if that happens, how will I deal with it? Like in many other situations, as coaches, one of the things we recommend is a deep breath and a pause, so you can decide what an appropriate response to not having an answer on the spot might be. And we'll talk about more of that as we go. Okay, great. Let's keep going. I couldn't help but put a little, it's a 50-second Seinfeld clip, and I think you'll all enjoy it. So let me run this for a moment.
The sound isn't on.
Betsy, I believe you shared your screen. You did not share your sound with the screen. That's a separate button
Oh,
to share.
oh my gosh, people. Okay, hold on.
You would need to unshare, and then when you reshare it, there's a little button that says share my sound as well.
Oh my gosh, I don't see it. Okay. All right, people, we'll send this out separately. Again, I apologize for technical disorders. What I want you to know is that this is a great example of somebody deciding that they cannot admit they're wrong, even though it is 1000% clear that they don't know the answer to the question. They insist that a wrong answer is right. And it makes, of course, George, who often shows up this way, look foolish. So we'll share that with you and take the 50 seconds when you get it to take a peek. So what's at stake for you when you're not prepared to know that you don't have the answer to every question? How vulnerable does that make you feel? Your entire brand feels like it's at stake, your professional reputation. But I'd like to share a few words of wisdom from one of many of our coaches' favorite researchers on authenticity and leadership, Brené Brown. She may be a familiar face to you. This is a quote from Brené. Authenticity, your brand, is a collection of choices that we make every single day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. What resonates for you in those words that I'm reading from her quote? The words I'd like you all to remember are the chance to show up and be real, and we'll talk about why that's important at work. And the choice to be honest. Again, what are people expecting from you, and how do you continue to grow your brand? So at Vida, we work often with coaches with leaders about building their personal brand, their professional brand. I'm going to toss a couple words out for our consideration today, and they all tie to our ability to acknowledge either when we're wrong, or in this case, when we don't have an answer to every single question. Curious for you all to type into the chat other words that you want to consider as you continue to build your brand. So prepared, we want to show up as being a person who is prepared. Being able to say you don't know the answer to a question is very different from not having done your work. So when we imagine going into an environment and being able to answer a question, we need to have done our homework. In no way does the ability to admit we don't have an answer to a question suggest that you didn't do your due diligence to be as prepared as possible when you show up. Trust it. You want others to know they can count on you to have figured out what is the most important information that needs to be shared for the audience that is assembled in the room. They want to be able to trust that you have asked all the important questions, will tell others what they need to know, even the really hard stuff. Intelligent and thoughtful. People want to know that you're listening, absorbing new information, considering recommendations, and sharing as much information as you feel is relevant to the question at hand. But they also want to know some other things. They want to know that you're curious. You have an open mind. You're willing to lean on your team, get new solutions and new answers. They want to know that you're open. You're willing to change your point of view when the facts support it. And often in the case of not having an answer to a question right on the spot, somebody else may chime in and they may say, have you ever considered this set of facts or talking to this person? And instead of being caught in your tracks with that, we'll talk later, but you say, I'm very curious to get that response. I had not thought of it, and I'm going to follow up right away. So you're open-minded to other people's point of view. You're committed. You understand the goals and objectives of the team, the organization, the other person that you're sitting with, and you'll work really hard to get the right answers. And underscoring again what Brene said, you're honest. You're able to admit that you don't have the answer to that question, even though you were prepared, and you know what you need to do to get the right answer. Anybody typing anything into the chat about other attributes of growing your leadership brand? Okay, then we'll continue. So let's just imagine a scenario. You've been working really hard on the development of a product, and you're ready to share your presentation with the marketing team. You've dotted I's, crossed T's, you've met with the rest of the team, you've done your research, you've explored your timeline, you thought you were prepared. You go in very confident. And then those questions come up, and it's always the tricky one, especially when you didn't take the time to anticipate what the question might be. What do? All eyes on you. The questions, the hands are going up. Well, we've talked a little bit about this. You might stumble over your words. You may make up a false answer. You may point fingers. And in all cases, you'll have a physical reaction. You're probably feeling the heat rise in your body. Your brain gets a little tickly. Your hands might start sweating. One more time. Part of our process is, how do you anticipate questions that may come up? How do you prepare yourself in advance for staying in the moment, taking a deep breath, and responding? We call this humble leadership. What is the foundation that anybody can imagine for a topic called humble leadership? I define it as the ability to see yourself as you are, recognize your strengths and successes, and understanding your limitations. And by limitations, I don't mean intellectual limitations or creative limitations, but rather the fact that you're working with a set of variables that you were able to wrap your mind around, you prepared, and yet you may not have seen every single thing on the horizon, or you may have made an error in not following up with a certain person. There are a million small things that can happen. So you know that this can happen. You are mentally prepared for the just in case. In many cases, humility can be confused with a lack of confidence. But that's really not true. Humble leaders can be, and really typically are, confident in their own skills and abilities. So again, imagine in your mind going to a conversation or a meeting, feeling confident that you've done your work while being cognizant that you may not have explored every single avenue. You are a human being with a lot on your plate. Humble leaders know they're not perfect, and because they recognize they're not perfect, they don't expect for their team members to be perfect either. Each of you can bring a sense of compassion to your management style and allow the space for individuals and teams to learn, grow, and make their own mistakes. And this is really important when we think back to the ability to be an effective leader, which is people trust that you will admit what you do not know, that you will not make up information that is not relevant or real in the moment, that you will not point fingers or push blame on other people. They understand that you're working to build a team and a culture where telling the truth and being honest is valued. Admitting what you don't know is a key to this kind of effective leadership. When you're being assessed for your strengths, you will have both quantitative assessments and qualitative assessments. You need to be prepared. Again, being able to admit that you don't have the answer to a question does not alleviate your responsibility to be as prepared as you can be. But you're also going to be measured on qualitative skills. Effective leadership demonstrates that you have the skills to demonstrate lasting value to your organization, including your ability to think critically, communicate with a diverse set of people on complex issues, and show that you can pivot and continuously navigate challenges. Management will not need to look elsewhere for someone to address their concerns or their needs, and they'll feel confident that you will be telling the truth and handling whatever may come up. Now, I want to pause for a second, because many times when I'm working with clients, one of the things that we hear is, well, in my organization, there's no time for admitting that you don't have an answer to a question. No one around me ever admits that they don't have the answer to a question. It's just not part of our culture. We have to have the answers all the time. And that's why I feel anxious and nervous every time I stand up and share. And my response to that is yes, and. Yes, that is the culture in certain organizations that we have all worked in. That's the relationship you may have with a boss or your board. And yet, as you continue to grow in your role, all the way to CEO or whatever role that you aspire to fill eventually, you will not be able to have your arms wrapped around all facts all the time. And so we as individuals need to be prepared to manage these situations and to know that not having the answer may not feel good, but that there is a way to handle it, and for you to come out on the other end looking like a confident leader. When we consider effective leadership, confidence is a huge factor. And many of you who have worked with coaches know that continuing to build and maintain your confidence in the wake of so much change that we're all encountering on a day in and day out basis is no easy answer. You may be living in the space of, I'm only as good as my last right answer, or now they're going to know for sure that I'm not the person who they think I am. Anybody else have sort of reactions to that? I don't have the answer. I'm just in a big dark hole here. So it's all about building your confidence. Well, we don't have time today to get into a whole conversation about managing limiting beliefs and what may creep into your life as imposter syndrome. Please know that on the Vida website, we have tons of links to webinars, and also on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, as well as blog posts on both of these topics. But for today, what I want you to consider is, what was your mindset going into this presentation? And as a coach, the way we work with our clients often is to say, if I am successful in this conversation, in this presentation, this is what will happen. Perhaps I will convince others that we have a game plan. I will demonstrate that my team has been working really hard. I will lay out a time frame for when all answers will be resolved. All questions will be resolved. But you go into that presentation, this is what a good result will look like. And then often we challenge our clients to say, And if anything gets in the way, it might be this. It might be that the CFO always wants to know the answer to a question that I may not have at the tip of my fingers. We may run out of time. Somebody may interrupt with a new idea that we hadn't considered in the past. So what was your mindset going into this preparation? And then what did I do to prepare? This can be a really good activity for you to do going into a presentation, which is for confidence building. I made a list of all the things I needed to do to prepare so that I would show up in the way that I needed to show up with the facts and figures organized as best as I can. I've got this. Knowing for sure that it's possible that somebody will ask a question you did not anticipate, but wearing that cloak that says, I'm on it. I am prepared. And then relying on other moments that you have been communicating with peers, managers, or a broader team. What confidence moments have you established leading up to this moment that you can rely on now? I know I'm a good presenter. I know I'm the type of person who dots I's and crosses T's. I know that somebody in this audience has my back, etc. So these are all questions you can ask yourself. It takes, honestly, 5 or 10 minutes walking into the presentation that may make you feel like you're standing on a little bit firmer ground, even if and when somebody asks you a question that you don't have an instant answer to. We'll go on with an exploration of effective leadership. Your imperfections will establish your vulnerability, which leads to trust, both with the senior leadership team, but also importantly, with the people who are on your team, the people who report to you and or your peers. Being honest typically is not a risky move. It shows your willingness to be vulnerable and suggests that you feel comfortable in the environment that you're in. So with the person who jumped on board a few minutes ago, presenting to a board of directors feels very different from presenting to an internal team. Your ability to step forward, act confident, and be prepared for questions that you may not have instant answers to shows that you feel comfortable in this audience and people will trust you. Your ability to show your comfort level can inspire others to feel comfortable as well and can nurture, as we talked about before with your team, a safe space where your team is likely to excel. I don't even know if we should call these imperfections, and you can see I put that in quotes. It's really more your humanness, your realness. So setting yourself up for success, managing your expectations and others. And we've talked about this a little bit. What's the culture here? What do I notice around me? How have I seen other people manage or navigate responding to tricky questions or questions that they don't seem to have the answer to? What feels authentic? What feels like it wasn't well received? What do I know about my culture? Who is in this room? Who's in this audience? What do they expect from the person presenting them? Do they need very concrete answers, or will they be comfortable if we're very clear on when we can get answers to them when we don't have them? Who are these people? Who's there who might be able to support you? So many times, if you look around the room, you may notice that the head of, in my last example, the head of product development is sitting there. And if you don't have a clear answer to how you're going to move forward with the marketing plan, you can turn to a cohort or a peer and say, are you okay if I hand the microphone back to you? If I refer back to you to help us flesh out the answer to this question? And then, of course, how quickly can I get answers to the questions that have been asked? So what are the kinds of responses that any of us can bring to the table when we don't have an answer at the tip of our fingers. Here are some fun examples, and I'd love to hear real life examples that any of you have used. Though I'm not certain, I'll circle back to you by such and such a date. Thank you for your question. I'll find out. Based on what we know today, my point of view is whatever it may be. I don't have that data at hand, but I'll get it to you later today. I really don't have an answer to that question right now, but I'm confident I can gather it in the next day or so. I trust my team to have that information. Let me circle back with them and then forward it to you. What do you all notice about those kinds of responses that aren't just, I don't know, but acknowledge that you don't, in fact, have the answer to the question, but you know you can get it? What changes? Anybody? Has anyone had success coming up with a phrase or a response when they're not sure of what the answer to their question is? Okay, well, feel free to chime in if you do have words of wisdom that we haven't explored here today. So how are you going to put this plan into place? 3 buzzwords here: mindset, preparation, and practice. In our leadership coaching, we work with teams and individuals on these kinds of topics all the time, helping individuals build confidence to have an organization where individuals know they can feel safe admitting what they do not know, and then helping the organizations grow and lean in to do their most effective work. Each of you has the opportunity to determine your own style by getting yourself prepared, not only with facts and figures, but also understanding what the expectations are of the people attending your meeting or even your one-on-one, and how you're going to show up prepared, but also ready when something comes up that you didn't know. Your ability to respond and understand your organizational culture is paramount. And having these kinds of conversations with peers and friends within the organization can be really, really valuable as you prepare to walk into these kinds of meetings. Finally, managing expectations. We've talked a lot about your expectations for yourself. Getting used to knowing that not having all the answers all the time in the exact minute that someone needs them is okay. And then there's the kind of language that we've been talking about toward the end of the conversation that continues to convey confidence to the people that you're meeting with, that you've got their back. You will get answers to the questions. You will be open to recommendations and ideas and ready to make the contributions that they expect from you. As coaches, we continue to work really hard to help our one-on-one clients as well as teams build these kind of plans, practice to gain the confidence they need, and get prepared to walk into any kind of conversation ready to get their point across. So that's really it. I think I'll bounce it to Justice now, and of course, respond to your questions in the chat, or feel free to turn your audio on.
Thank you so much, Betsy. And give me 1 sec while I get ready here and I will take over. All right. So if you're ready to take your leadership to the next level, what if by this time next year, you've exceeded all of your performance goals, you're happy to come to work every day, you can easily delegate and manage your workload and time for yourself and your life, and you know your strengths, have the confidence to show up effectively every day. But but maybe you feel like you don't know what you're doing. You lack direction or cohesion in the leadership team. There's some bad habits that are forming or creating a little bit of a toxic work culture. And there might be a team that doesn't feel empowered around their work. Even though I mentioned what if that happens next year, what if that's happening right now? Well, if that's the case, then it's time to hire a leadership coach. And how it works is we utilize a unique blend of live one-on-one coaching sessions and proprietary curriculum to help clients throughout the country elevate their leadership and their performance overall. The program includes personal virtual coaching sessions. The sessions are 60-minute one-on-one coaching sessions, and the frequency in which you want to have those sessions is up to you. And during those sessions, you get, personalized individual feedback that's really just there to support your leadership and where you are and where you're trying to go. It also concludes a 360 assessment. So before the coaching begins, we'll complete a full 360 review of each participant to establish their strengths, blind spots, and opportunities to grow, so that our customized coaching can meet you where you're at. And this gives a nice basis for measurements when you look to process in the future. You also get instant access to our accredited Elevate e-coaching program. And so we designed our own comprehensive program that really is a 3-part. And the first part is the future of the organization. The second part works on leadership and performance fundamentals. And the third part is coaching your team to success. And this is an accredited program. Again, it was really excited to have, and we've seen a lot of really good value come from. And then in addition to just having a membership here with us, there's a ton of bonuses that come with membership. And bonus one is access to our community Slack page. And what's great about that is it has all of our current clients as well as all of our coaches. So it's a really healthy environment we've been able to create where people post all sorts of resources, connect, they bounce ideas off each other. And really there's a chance where you get to know some of the other coaches that are also on the team. Because bonus number 2 is that as well as you already have your main coach, you have the ability to have celebrity sessions from the other coaches that are on our team. So this is your chance to really explore some of the niche skill sets that other coaches have the potential to bring to you to overall just elevate yourself and become a more well-rounded leader. The third part is that you have access to member-only event, as you can meet other like-minded individuals that are just kind of in similar positions to you and really just have a focus and a desire to really just learn more about a certain skill. And we have those that are only members only, in addition to these that are open to the general public. So there's a level of just accessibility. And so the coaching investment overall, the bonuses alone are worth over $500 a month, but our coaching starts at $339 a month. And plus, as we mentioned, coming to us from a webinar, you get $190 off of your first month. So it's something to consider as you're thinking about budgeting and looking into coaching further. With that being said, I will go ahead and drop some of these links in here for you all as I just get to those. Give me 1 second here. And other than that, we can open this up now to some thoughts and questions. If anybody has those, we'd be more than happy to get Coach Betsy back on the mic to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Yeah, I'm here, and thanks, Justice. I'm kind of looking back at the chat now, and there are a couple things in here that I think are interesting to chat about. So, Joy, you said it's not intuitive. My bosses haven't thought that that's okay. And I find that then Meg said, and I find it, I always want to identify and answer immediately. So that's that reaction that has worked for us well, maybe in school or other places where it's like, I'm the kind of person who can come up with an answer on the spot. And Joy, for you, certainly like, that's what I think everyone expects around me. What are some ideas that you all have for managing those feelings that may or may not be productive right now in your work environments? So I'll toss one your guys' way, but in a one-on-one, perhaps you chat with your manager about your goal to be more comfortable not knowing the answer to every single thing, even though you will be prepared. And perhaps you say, this is something I'm going to practice, and I will always follow up promptly in any environment that I have to accept that I won't have an answer to a question. And engage in a conversation with your manager on that topic. See what their response is to that strategy that you're putting into place. But owning it all by yourself and deciding that you're going to do that if you don't feel confident that the people in the environment around you will like it or accept it, probably won't work very well. Meg, I see what you're saying here, which is in a culture where it's you as a team, expect that when you're meeting with clients, you need to have an answer to all questions all the time. What I would ask you to consider as you go back to your organization and think this through a little bit is, how does that work out? Is the team deep and creative enough to come up with an answer on the spot that will work for the clients? Great. Or do you all scramble once the call is over to decide whether you promise something that you actually can't live up to? So again, is this working? And if not, what are the important conversations that I need to have? Pamela, I feel foolish or ill-prepared. Again, can't emphasize enough. Do everything that you always do to be super prepared while accepting and knowing that you may not have the answer to every single question. My mind races and goes blank. Ugh, such a bad feeling. Such a bad feeling. Okay, I see there's some new messages here. So it's Justice. Oh, and the example responses that are in the slides. Absolutely, Joy. Those will be Justice, you send, or somebody, Jillian, send the slides out, and those responses are in there. That's great.
Yep. The responses are in there as well as the recording to go back and watch the webinar.
Yeah. Anybody else with questions, real life examples, ideas? Otherwise, we'll have a shorter webinar today, but I'd love to be able, anybody who wants to stay on the phone and chat, I'm happy to do that.
This is helpful. Thank you, Betsy. I think
Thanks, Allie.
it's incumbent upon us to learn how to face this because it's going to happen at some point, right? So
Totally.
Being prepared is better. So thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Allie. Anybody else want to talk a little bit about what they've experienced in their office? I notice you're all staying on the line, so I am really happy to chat about this if you'd like to. Anybody with questions for Justice?
Okay, well, if no one has any questions or wants to chat through anything, get some time back in our Wednesdays. Thank you.